Hello everyone. Hi, hi. Welcome to today's program. I welcome each and every one of us to today's program. And today we are going to be talking about cracking the graduate school application code. Cracking the graduate school application code. First and foremost, I would like to introduce a little bit about the bridge. The Bridge Scholarship is a scholarship that is meant, as we all know or most have heard about, or for those who are just joining us for the very first time, the Bridge Scholarship is aimed at providing education to indigent and intelligent students all across Africa. We already started with Nigeria and gradually growing into the other African countries. And today we are hosting a seminar that is basically about cracking the code of graduate school application. Um, so we're going to have, just to put some rules for the how we're going to operate today. We've been collecting questions from a lot of us, and we've sent in a lot of questions, and we've put all these questions together. And these questions are the things we're going to be asking our panelists to get today. And before we jump into what we're actually here to do today, I would like to give the stage first to our panelists to introduce themselves so that you can see or know a little bit about the people who are going to be talking to us. And while we think they are quite resourceful and they have the right information to share with us today, so please use the chat, share your questions. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll keep collating questions as much as we can while the program is ongoing. And for the questions we are not able to attend to online, we will get back to you with a feedback. So having said that, I want to say welcome once again to my panelists, and I will be handing over one after the other to you to kindly introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. I'll start with you, Timsey.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tumsi Abasa Thomas. I think most people call me Tumsi, so that's short and easy. I'm from Nigeria as well, but I currently live in Munich in Germany. I'm a renewable energy engineer specializing in PV photovoltaics, what most people would call solar panels. Currently working as a technical sales engineer for one of the global manufacturers in the world. I have a master's degree in renewable energy, got it here in Germany, and I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I'm happily married with a child, and in my spare time, I love to do things like this. So this is what I do outside my 9 to 5, basically helping other people rise, because I was once in your shoes as well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Timsey. And also, just to add there, Timsey was also a DAAD scholar. So she's going to be telling us all about her journey in this meeting. Okay, thank you very much, Timsey. And I'll come to you, Lucky. Could you please tell us about yourself?
Good day, everyone. My name is Lucky Umezulike. I'm a doctoral candidate in public administration and public policy at the Department of Political Science at Auburn University here in the US. Yeah, I'm also a graduate assistant at the department. So I teach, I assist with research stuff at the department. Yeah, before I came for my master's program, I was a professional in Nigeria. I was with the British Council as a programs officer, and my professional life too, I've consulted for several organizations, including the World Bank, International Labour Organization, and a truckload of many international and even governmental organizations or institutions. Yeah, good to be here and looking forward to the discussions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lucky. We're looking forward to hear from you too also. So, Dr. Ogana.
Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to our session. So we're excited you're here. I am Ogonawa Jobi, popularly known as Jide. So I am a certified coach, trainer, and speaker. Beside that, too, I am a scientist, a researcher. So I've done science for a very long time, and I've had a privilege to stand on the shoulders of giants. So luckily for me, I was I was a lecturer, a professor at Nnamdi Azikiwe University for 5 years, between 2012 to 2017, before I got a fully funded scholarship to come to the United States to do my PhD. So I started a journey at Auburn University and moved after 3 years to Emory University, where I graduated with a PhD in chemical engineering. So it was that last year of the grad school that the vision of the bridge was born. So with other committed Nigerians, young Nigerians, we started the journey to empower uh, those on the fringes of society, students who are very intelligent, but we are struggling to graduate or at the verge of dropping out of school. So we took them in our wings, and we have been paying for their fees and their accommodation. So to date, we have 43 students, and next year we are going big by the grace of God. So, and in this panel, I would want to encourage anyone who loves what they do and would want to contribute to the scientific or the scientific in the arts or in the business. You feel that you need to get a higher education, to take that, to do all that it requires for you to be competitive. So this panel is to help students be competitive in the application, and I will share my story and give some of the wisdom I have learned, having helped lots of students, having helped lots of colleagues, a lot of people to get successfully accepted into graduate programs. So I'm really excited about it and really happy to be with these bright minds on this stage. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogonna. Awesome. We're really looking forward to hear from you very soon. And I also want to introduce Dr. Casey. Doctor, could you please introduce yourself to us?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear, yes.
Yeah, I'm just recovering from a serious headache, so I hope I will be able to manage to stay for the next 2 hours. But that's okay. I'm much better today. So I'm Casey. I'm currently a research scientist at Procter & Gamble in Germany. My background, I'm Nigerian. Of course, I'm still Nigerian. I have a background in industrial chemistry, a double master's in material science and engineering, and a double PhD in organic and polymer chemistry. I think what is even more relevant for this audience today is with just also listening to Dr. Ogonna, is with regards to looking behind and asking the question how we could use what we know and what we have to create better opportunities for people like us. And so that's why 5 years ago, I founded what is now known as DeCamp, which is a peer-to-peer mentorship platform. And over the past 5 years, we've now recorded over 250 of my mentees that have won international scholarships across the globe. A lot of them are in the US. We have achieved over $20 million in cumulated fundings. And we have also used a lot of our resources to try and start creating different types of interventions, especially in different areas. For example, using our know-how to see what we can do in the area of education, in the area of health, in the area of agriculture. And as we look forward, I think at the end of the day, the goal for me is always how do your life make a difference in the life of others, right? Because at the end of the day, we have such a short time to live here. And will be remembered by how our life impacted others. So this has been our motive. We believe in collective win. So that's why you hear a lot about the Till We All Win hashtag on LinkedIn, which is our philosophy. We believe that till we all win, no one has truly won. And so that is why we all continue to be a work in progress. So thanks very much, Choma, for the kind invitation. Happy to share the little I know with this audience. Thank you.
DeCamp, you don't know a little, you know a lot.
Thank you. I was going to correct that notion very clearly. Okay, so we would get right into it, and I would say just to do some little housekeeping here. we have a lot of questions that we've received from our audience, and we've categorized these questions into 5 different areas. So I would be asking questions in this area, and I would be directing some of them to particular persons from time to time. But if there is a question I ask and you feel you want to, make an input in it, please feel free to, jump in on that one. So the questions are categorized into the 5 different areas: application preparation, searching for schools, scholarship funding, self-sponsorship, application timing, best practices, and sharing from your personal experience. Nonetheless, please feel free at any point in time, whenever I ask any question, to share from your own personal experience if it comes to this. Okay, but at the end of the questions today, there are so many questions that basically would be channeled towards sharing personal experience on how it went for us during our own application. So having said that, I will start with the very first questions we have here on the application preparation. One of the questions was, what are the must-haves before one even starts thinking about making an application? And I want to start with you, Dr. Gunnar, for this.
Can you reframe the question again, Joma?
What are the must-haves, as in what must someone already have in place, or have already before the person even starts thinking of making an application for graduate school?
Okay, thank you for that question. So this is like what the Bible says, you have in your hands, right? You use that what you have. But first thing I would say, you have to be alive first. You have to have your life, right? And then you're thinking of how to move ahead. For some of us, it will be different. For someone like me, I was at a place where I felt I was trapped. So I felt like I was trapped. I was a lecturer for 5 years. And then I completed my master's. I did research, but I felt that I was doing the literature of science. I felt that I wanted to do this science and not the literature of science. So first, you must have that urgent desire to better yourself. And this becomes the driving force. Yeah, Dr. Gessie can allude to this too, that when you see students come to you, they want to get graduate school application, you will easily discern those who will make it. Because you see the drive, those who are very hungry, they will do everything possible. If you tell them, rewrite this personal statement 10 times, they will jump at it. So those other people, if you tell them you require TOEFL, you require GRE for this school, they will jump at it. So you must, first of all, have that intense desire to be more, to better yourself. In your field, you could be an engineer, but you see that with the environment you are in, helping you grow. So if you're trapped, then you can begin the thing. Secondly, more to the rudiments of what people would expect. Some people would think you have to have your fixed degree, you have to have your transcript, you have to have all of those things. But I would think that as you evolve in your education, once you enter the university, as you evolve, you begin to know what your inclinations are. So if you feel that you are someone who is interested in research, who is interested in teaching, who is interested in getting a broader worldview, for you to start early. When I came here, I started engaging with the students, my students in Nigeria, from their second year. So from their second year, so that they get ready. The reason for that is simple. If you know from your second that you want to pursue graduate education outside the country, outside whichever country you are from, that will inform what you will do. One of it, you begin to get more interested in research, or you go to professors. I'm interested. I want to do this research. I can have publication. So when you go for IT, you are looking for places that can make you a stronger candidate. You wouldn't just want to do anything just to satisfy that requirement. You are working with intention. So you begin that growth with intention. And then you seek out opportunities. You seek out leadership positions, which is important. Seek a leadership position where you can take initiative, because part of the graduate education is to make you to think for yourself, to be a leader or all-round leader. So starting ahead helps you to know the things that are required of you and to pursue them. But when you are getting closer to the application process, by then you would have had your degree in place, or almost concluding your degree. You are getting ready for your transcript, already have it in hand. You begin to write your personal essays. You begin revising them, reaching out to people on LinkedIn and all of those things, making sure that you are ready when the application comes. So that is what I would say, that people start early by identifying what they want to do and being determined about it will make them go and succeed in that particular area. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogana. You just really mentioned a lot of things. One must be hungry. You must actively seek to make publications, seek places where you can make stronger impact or growth, as in be very intentional about the places you go to work or to seek out opportunities, and then seek leadership opportunities. This is really awesome. I would like to say, could you also weigh in a little bit on that topic? Are there extra things that people need to put in place or prepare before they even start thinking about making applications?
Yeah, okay. So I think for most people, when they say, oh, what do I need to apply, right? Is the first thing that comes to mind is what is needed, or the grades. But like Jide has already said, I think for me, it's determination. It's determination. You need to be hungry, but also in addition to that, you really need to have a resilient mindset, right? It's not going to be maybe the first school you apply to that you're going to get. It's not going to be the first scholarship you apply to that you're going to get. So you need to spread your tentacles. Do not put your egg in one basket, and be ready. Be ready to know that failure is a lesson. Failure is just another opportunity to be better at the next one. So really, really have that resilient mindset and know that this is it, right? And just face it as it comes. Take every lesson. Speak to other people. I think Jide has already mentioned this. So this must have is really like finding out all the information that you would need ahead of time, being prepared mentally for it before you even start saying, okay, which school do I want to go to, or what do I want to do? But starting early and being determined and being hungry and having a resilient mindset, for me, is key to getting success, basically.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that input. So I would move straight to the next question, which says, what are the key elements to make a good application for scholarship and admission? So now the person is resilient, the person has the hunger, the person is seeking out all the opportunities, and the person has all these things. Finally, the person lands into a final year, finished school, and the person is ready to start application. How can this process start? What are the key elements for a good application? Dr. Casey, I'm coming to you with this.
First, thank you for the question. I will start by saying that I can't even say the first without really aligning fully with what Dr. Ogona and will I say Temisoma Basi? How will I call it? Basi? Timse. Okay. I think that is really the foundation. I mean, the question you just asked now for me, it doesn't start there. It starts before, right? I wouldn't tell someone that in your final year, then you start applying. I would say that I like what Dr. Ogona said, from your second year, right? You start applying already. The fact that you have not submitted an application doesn't mean that you have not started. You need to start yesterday, right? And for you to start, I think I'm really happy that both of you really touched something that most people always avoid. You know, when you tell people about scholarship, they're like, what do I need? Transcript? I don't have transcript. I don't have certificate. I don't have because those are things that are external. But the big part of your application is internal. That's why that hunger needs to be there, right? That resilient, that reason, like, you know that you cannot avoid not to do this. And this is the mindset that prepares you even before you start getting your certificate. I would give myself as an example, just to touch to what you said. I started applying for scholarship in my third year, okay? And in my third year, I didn't have a transcript. In fact, I didn't even have an international passport, right? But what happened was, for every reason that I gave my older brother, he's my mentor, he was already in his scholarship then, And each reason I gave him why I couldn't start, he said, find a reason how you can go around it. So for passport, I use my student ID. I know it's an identity. Did it make me go through that screening? No, but I knew that I had submitted an application, right? And then the next year, I was now ready. I now had a passport. I now had TOEFL. So each year I was getting better, even though I wouldn't have said I am fully ready. I knew that even if I got a scholarship, I would not live in my third year, in my fourth year, right? But I would say that people should not wait till their final year to start preparing for application, to start applying. There are some of those skill sets, soft skills, like being intentional on where you want to do your IT, because you now know that, oh, if I have this kind of research experience, I will be more competitive. You need to know this early enough, not in your final year, right? You need to build relationship. This is so important. You need recommendation from your professors, right? So it's not in your final year or when you have graduated that you say, oh, you taught me in my 200 level. That's not how to prepare yourself, right? So you have to, as soon as possible, start building those relationships. Go to these professors, offer to do something for them, offer services, be in their lab, understand how you could be of help, be visible, get known by them, because you're already preparing your mind that, oh, when I'm applying, I know I need a recommendation. You would not know that you need a recommendation until you even know what an application looks like. So to answer your question, I would say start yesterday. Start yesterday. Just get familiar. The things you don't know, or the things you don't have, or the things you can't have is not the reason that is stopping you. I think what is stopping you is not being clear on your why you need to apply for a scholarship. I see that today. It looks for some people like, oh, I'm just going to apply for the sake of applying. But since there's a lot of awareness, which is what you're doing today with this event, I strongly advise undergraduates to start already. Whatever reason you think is stopping you, find a way of how you can address it or how you can be working towards it. Okay, so you know that you've already started. Oh, I'm applying to get my passport. I'm saving to, get a passport. I'm saving to write a TOEFL exam. But you don't write a TOEFL exam when you have not prepared for TOEFL. It takes time to prepare. There are so many materials you can already start preparing for the exam, even when you don't have the money to pay for it, right? So those are, for me, important ways for us to be prepared, because at the end of the day, those documents, applications like SOPs, etc., you can already start learning how to write now. Creative writing, storytelling. Those are skills that will be needed in that time when you finally are trying to be more competitive, but you don't get them then. You get them today or even from yesterday. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Casey, for that. I picked out a lot of things. You echoed again what Dr. Ogonna and Timsey already said. And you also mentioned a few things. One needs to get their passports ready, their language test requirements ready, their SOPs ready. Mr. Lucky, I would like to come to you. Are there other documents that one needs to also put in place or prepare towards making a graduate school application?
Yeah, there are quite a number of them, and in addition to what other speakers have said, yeah, I think the most important thing, assuming the demography, the audience, there is several undergraduate students there. I mean, those that are still doing their first degree. Yeah, so just like everyone has said, you have to be very serious with your life and be very, very serious with that education. I think that first degree is actually one of the most important in your life, because it's going to open pathways and is going to have a causal effect on what happens at the master's level or PhD level if you get to that level. And why I'm saying that is that, for example, what you graduated with, I know that there could be several reasons, and I'm not saying that those that made third class, those that made 2-2, those that even graduated with a past degree, that they didn't. Some of them still found ways to. There are a few of them that really still made it in life, but that one is very important. That first class is very important if you can get that, because it actually kind of makes you more competent. When you make these applications, I have a few young guys I'm coaching now, and I think like two of them had to like, I've seen people lose funding opportunities. They don't get graduate assistantship because of what they graduated with and the likes. And what I tell every young person that is still a student, at that first degree level, is to make sure that if you don't leave it with a first class, that you should leave with a 2-1, because it will get you competitive. I think that's one of the most important elements. And if you're also serious during your first degree, you know, you will be conscious with some of the steps that you're taking. What I mean by that is that, for instance, your research interest, your final project, I know we don't take it very, very seriously at that level, maybe except for some of us that were had exposure earlier, or had, older ones, or parents, or uncles, or relations that guide them. But that project is also very, very important, because if you're seeking a master's admission, for instance, in the US here, you'll be pitching your research interest. You will be saying what you've done already in that line of in that area, research wise. And if you don't have something tangible, something that makes a whole lot of sense in terms of what you're pitching that you've done at that level, it will be very, very difficult for you to sell yourself, because it's a very, very competitive process. So making sure that you live there with a very, very good degree, making sure that every step that you take, is kind of calculated, being meticulous about steps, about research interest, about professors you're working with, just like Dr. Casey mentioned. It's not when you've graduated and the likes, you start getting back to these guys for recommendation letters and the likes. Building that relationship from the get-go actually kind of helps. They've also mentioned dream. Dream is very, very important. That desire. I could recall my first alawi during my NYS was for my international passport. In short, I spent all my alawis, making applications for masters, paying what do they call it? Application fee for so many, to so many universities overseas for my master's degree. So that desire, that passion is very, very important. That internal drive, because you're going to hit a lot of obstacles along the way, but having that drive to persevere. Then in terms of other elements, I will mention your motivation letter. I think is one of the key elements that influences whether you get successful or not. How you write it, how you package it. There is a format, but the most important thing is putting your story straight. Your profile, what motivated you, what have you done, to that effect, and what are your plans for the future, and how does getting further education, whether masters or PhD, how does that fit in? So having your story straight from day one, and having a very, very good motivation letter can actually go a long way to help you. In addition, is also like your reference letters, your recommendation letters, the quality, the caliber of people that make that recommend you, and what they said in those recommendation letters. So that's also why you should be very, very, like, your first degree is the most important in your life. I'm telling you the gospel truth. Yeah, because the relationships you build, then how your lecturers and your professors perceive you, how they see you. You don't know who you might require a recommendation letter from, and for most of them, they wouldn't just sign any draft that you just give to them. Some of them would want it to be reflective of who you are, or their perception about you. Yeah, so being a serious student from day one, and having your stuff sorted out from day one is actually going to go a long way. I know GRE is also another element for, especially for those coming to the US for graduate education. Most universities, most schools will require you to write GRE. I know for TOEFL, for IELTS, I think some schools you can actually push your way through, arguing that I've never written that exam, and my argument has always been that from primary school to university, masters, I've always been taught in English language, so why should I write it? Yeah, so you can actually get I think there's a letter you can get from your university for that to be waived or something. But for some schools, GRE is a must. So also getting ready, being prepared for that. It's all about putting your life together first degree, NYSC stage, even if you have to work for some time to raise money, because all these things are cost intensive. So you require funds to execute them. If you're not from a very rich home or something, it has to be your personal resources. So saving and planning ahead of time, mapping schools too. Yeah, because if you want to do like a master's in chemical engineering, you should know where you would want to go. Do you want to go to UK? Do you want to go to Australia? Do you want to go to US or Canada? They'll have their comparative advantages. They'll have their pros and cons. Where would you want to go to? Mapping schools ahead of time, keeping in touch with even people that might have graduated from that school, or even with program coordinators, with some professors. Like I know for PhD in the US, you need to, even reach out to professors, reach out to program coordinators ahead of time, selling yourself, sharing your CV, letting them know your aspiration and the like. So it's all about planning and starting from that first degree, which is ultimately important. So sorry, I'm taking so much time.
No, of course not an issue at all. Thank you very much, Mr. Loki. I think we really shared a lot of information on the key essentials that are needed for application of scholarship, and I hope everyone is writing down this, because my paper is completely full with all the points you are listing. So thank you very much for that. And you were also mentioning something about motivation letters, so I would want to go straight to the next question with this. And Dr. Gordon, I'm coming to you with this one. How can one actually make his or her personal statement stand out? How can this SOP or motivation letter, how can one really ensure that their SOP or motivation letter stands out such that it becomes an enabler for them to get a scholarship that they are applying for? What are the key elements that must be there?
Okay, thank you, Gemma. So I would first of all like to highlight what Lucky said. Here, this is something that people from Nigeria, they might not truly understand how in developed world, how references are valued. So imagine that these people want to give you admission or a job, they don't know you. But they want to know those who know you, what they say about you. So it is very important that they know. So you will say beautiful things about yourself. They could Google you on anywhere to see who you are. But someone else saying that means a lot. And that's where relationship is very important. And the reason I say this, I stand from the two sides. I still write recommendations for my students that I taught in Nigeria. So you will see someone who you can't even remember anything about him or her because you had actually nothing. You just like say, hello, hi, sir, and you pass. So it wasn't serious. The person, it doesn't stand out and hasn't even kept the relationship to be like visible on LinkedIn. You don't need to be friends to write a recommendation, but you need to just have a way to confirm who that person is. So when I prepare for graduate applications, I made sure that the people who wrote my recommendation are those I have kept in touch with, those who knew what I was doing. And that is some other thing too, is some professors do not write good recommendations. They have the same template for every student, very generic. And they just give you like, it wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't mean anything. So when I do this with a student last year, you need your advisor to speak about the research you have done, your contributions to it. You have to make sure that is reflected on your letter. If it doesn't reflect on your letter, it's like another market woman writing your recommendation. Anybody can say you're a serious person. But a professor says, oh, this person spent endless days in the lab solving this problem. What does that show? That shows you are very resilient. And everyone here knows that graduate education is about resilience. Muscle. It's about muscle. So you have muscle. That's what it is about. So that sets you apart. Now, about motivation letter. I wouldn't base my stuff on cosmetic aspect of it. What do I mean by cosmetic aspect of it is, the cosmetic aspect is how you package it. That is very important. But the foundation of it is equally based on what we have been saying since. that you need to have the things you can speak to. Now, I will come to the second aspect, the cosmetics. The cosmetics is the packaging. How is it packaged? You have to tell a good story. And this is one of the best gifts I got from my master's advisor, Dr. Bunogafo, the late Dr. Bunogafo. She's late now. So when I would write my master's thesis, we would write papers. I give her the letter and she'd be like, no, this is not connecting logically. You're just moving from one part to the other. You need to connect logically. So one line should move to the other. One paragraph should move to the other. It has to be it has to be like a sequence to tell a good story. So it was painful then. But over time now, I've learned to write good stories. I learned to write good stories. So first of all, you need to know how to write a good logical story. I had loved to make electricity accessible and affordable to every Nigerian. Then I got into electrical engineering. When I was doing electrical engineering, I found out that it is not sustainable. It has some other problem, that the way we generate power. So we needed renewable energy. But I could not get all of this within within the Nigerian setting or within Ghanaian setting, or whether there's no university or department specializing on teaching students renewable energy. But then I found that your university is the best in renewable energy, and I'm applying to do this. We apply to the university, and this university you're applying to will solve the initial dream. You see,
why are you telling my story? I had to cut you there because you're telling my story, right?
If it were Choma would have said, I read Choma's SOP, but I did not read the SOP.
That's what you did.
So you see the sequence of a story. And all of us, I want to point out two things to everyone listening. There are two things we are in life. We are storytellers and we are marketers. We are marketers. Life is about marketing. And how do you market? By telling your story. And I've often seen students, they say, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. What are you doing? But you have your life. You lead a life. So many of it through difficulty. Think about it. We often talk about that Nigeria, African countries, or wherever, the developed countries. We live in extreme poverty. And you are in a space right now, you are competing with students who went to Harvard, who went to Max Planck Institute in Germany, who went to King's College. You are doing the same application with them. Probably you are writing your SOP with a lantern, kerosene lantern, and you are seeking the same specs. You are a fringer. You're living on the fringes of society. That is a wonderful story to tell. And despite those difficulties, you are still able to graduate with a first class, with a 2-1 or 2-2. Even your family has some sort of stuff. You had some learning disability while you were young. You had this. The things must have happened in your life. This must have happened in your life that you overcame, and you still did well in your school, and you are striving to do more. So people are looking for those who have overcome difficulties. The world celebrates those who have overcome, and that is the story you need to tell, and it is your story. So, and right now we have a lot of tools. We really have a lot of tools. I didn't even know. Last week I was telling some of my wife that, I just asked Copilot, can you make a slide for me? I was to give a thought. I said, can you make a slide for me in a PowerPoint? Copilot did a beautiful slide for us. This word is so sweet now. So he can even make a slide and make diagrams for me. I was like, wow, this is beautiful. We are living the dream. We are really living the dream. So don't use AI to write your letters, but AI can give you a lot of information. So anybody who lacks information in this age is living in the desert. In fact, even if you're living in the desert, you operate your phone in the desert. So learn the art of storytelling and think deep in your life. What are those things you have overcome? And what are those things that do motivate you? Why are you striving for success? Personally, my success, I'm striving for success so that, that the dreams of my parents, the dreams of my ancestors will not go extinguished. And what is that dream? The dream is to make the world a better place. So when I look at the eyes of my parents, I see that they wanted a better world for me and my siblings. And they wouldn't have want, they wanted a better world for us so that we can attain a better world for everyone else. So they have succeeded in their own by giving me the light. That light, I need to pass it on to others. I need to pass it on to others. If it stops with me, they have not succeeded. That's not success. So that motivates me every day to go out and make the world a better place. Find out that which motivates. My father's name is in my, because he was already led then. My father's name is in my SOP. There. So you find out that which motivates you and tell that story in such a way that others can connect with it. Use emotion. Human beings by nature are very emotional. So write those stories in such a way that they can emotionally connect with another person. And if you're able to achieve that, once you are able to achieve that, you have succeeded. So sometimes students bring the SOP and I do this thing this way, do it this way, do it this way. After a while, they look like when they come back after the whole refining, they will like, it doesn't seem like I'm the one who wrote this, but that's their story. And then few months afterwards, typically because of the time difference in Nigeria, between Nigeria and the US. So you wake up during the application, that admission stage. You wake up every morning with good news. They will forward a message to you. I was admitted in this university, and the day becomes very bright. So it becomes really very bright. So, but the work someone has to put, you have to put in the work. And I believe everyone who commits to this can be a good marketer and can be a good storyteller.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gunnar. Thank you very much for that wonderful thing about SOP and how people can actually be logical and sequential about their stories while preparing their motivation letter and SOP. And I also love the fact that you pointed out the good use of AIs and clearly stated, do not allow AI write your statement. You make your statement, but you can use the AI tools to boost or even fill in the logic that you need to be in your SOP or motivation letter. Thank you very much for that. So I will move to the next question. And this is more in the direction of what are really the differences, the country related differences. I know here we have some people from US, we have some people from Germany, and we also, so I will split it into US and Europe. Mr. Lucky, I believe you're also you also have some US experience, right? So the question is basically, what is the process of applying for graduate school and scholarship in countries, as in how do they differ from US and Europe? So for US, I will start with you, Mr. Lucky. What is it like for someone who is applying for a graduate school in US? And then I would like to also give, after you, maybe Dr. Casey can take over. What is it like for someone who is applying in Europe?
Okay, thank you so much for that, Chioma. So for US, okay, so by the way, so back to all this stuff that we've been discussing about motivation, desire. After my master's, I went back to Nigeria. I was working. I was, in a fantastic job and all that. But from day one, the dream has always been to do my PhD. It's been a deep-seated dream. So between like 2016 and 2021, I made several applications to other countries. I never looked at the US because I can't recall vividly why I never looked at the US until one of my former colleagues started his PhD program in the US and then urged me to apply, and the likes. And when I got in here, I was shocked. Yeah, because I actually before even the US, I never knew that PhD could be free anywhere. And what I mean by being free is that you don't pay tuition, you get stipends monthly, every single thing is funded, books to some extent, conferences and the likes. I never knew. So when I came here and I was seeing a lot of Nigerians, I was like, wait, how did you guys even learn about this thing that you can actually apply, to the US for masters, for PhD? In short, I have a friend that did masters in economics here free. He did MBA free. He's
Um, just to stop you, just to clarify something, free, is this literally free because the country is free, or free because they got it through a scholarship?
no. So free, what free that I mean is that they didn't pay tuition, and he was getting stipends monthly. So he did a masters in economics, did MBA. He's almost finishing his PhD, the same PhD with me in public policy, still free. Then I started seeing other people, and I was like, what is going on? And so that was when I started, I brought out my gong and started, all my cousins, all my all my friends, every young person I know in Nigeria, I've been like, what are you doing? You need to apply, and the likes. And my thesis is that, so in the US, I don't know, Ogonna is way ahead of me in this slide, but I think he's not being referred to as scholarship. I think it's generally being referred to as graduate assistantship. And by graduate assistantship, whether you're doing masters or PhD, you're assisting in the department. You could be assisting a professor in the lab, you could be teaching, you could be doing research generally at the department. So you're contributing to departmental growth, helping professors, helping the faculty as a whole. Then you are getting paid, and you don't pay tuition. Generally in the US, I PhD is free. Yeah, I'm yet to see someone that actually, an international student that came to the US. You can't even pay the fees because it's madness. How do you pay that for 5 years? That should be tens of millions of naira. And my thesis is that, so I think what is happening is that PhD is very, for instance, PhD is very, what's the right way to use? It's very backbreaking in the US. It's madness. It's crazy. So because they're actually preparing you to be a scholar, to be a professor, because that's why in the US, once you finish your PhD, your first appointment is as an assistant professor in the universities. So they're preparing you to be a scholar, and because of that, is a very, very rigorous. I think PhD in the US is the most rigorous. Yeah, I think PhD in the US is the most rigorous. So because of that, I don't think many young Americans are interested in, some young Americans that are not interested in doing this PhD. And for them to have a constant supply of professors in their universities that are using the graduate assistantship vehicle. That's my thesis, actually, to lure bright international students to the US to do masters, PhD, in anticipation that they will go to the classrooms. So PhD, is literally free here, and so wise masters, for especially for those in STEM. I think most masters program in the US, you can also be able to get graduate assistantship, so you don't pay tuition, and you get stipends monthly. And US is actually the cheapest in terms of, with what is happening now, UK, Canada, Australia, you pay through your nose. I came to the US with my wife. I don't think we spent up to 5 million naira. Yeah, even because we came a few years ago, and even at that, the economy was very much better then, right? I think our flight ticket was like 1 million naira for both of us, and the like. So even that 5 million was actually because we just wanted to have a lot of cash at hand, so that our start here will be kind of very much easier. So US is like the easiest, because even the bank statements you print and go to the embassy with, they hardly look at it if you have funding. And if you have funding, there's a 95% possibility that you get your visa. Once you have funding, the chances of you getting your visa is really, really high. So far as you know what you're doing, and you can be able to defend whatever they ask you. So bank statements are not even needed. So US is just your visa fee, application fee, cash for GRE, and your flight ticket. And you come here, and maybe by the end of the first month, even if it's half of the month, because like August, academic year starts around 18, 19 or thereabout of August. By end of August, you're getting paid half of the month, and you can even start running your life from that point. Yeah. So in terms of how you can get here for such, because I think that should be the, so it depends on the program you're doing, like I know for engineering, in engineering, you have to reach out. So it is also a very a tedious process. It's not that easy getting such, funding opportunities, and that's why we were saying that you have to be intentional from day one. Knowing what you're doing, you have to start packaging yourself from day one. Because if you're coming from masters, they would want to know what your research interests are. They would want to know how you have done something in that area before, which is likely your bachelor's project, and your plans, in that research area, in scholarship. What do you want to explore further, and the like. So if you don't have those things, before you apply, it will be very, very difficult for you to sell yourself. For engineering, I know that they have to reach out to professors. So first of all, you need to map the universities, you need to map the programs, PhD in this, masters in this, then start looking for schools where you can do them. And when you identify the schools, you have to even go through the faculty profiles, look at their research expertise, go through, get email addresses of the PhD program coordinators, master's program coordinators, and start reaching out to them. So for like engineering, I know you have to reach out to individual professors, pitching your story, pitching yourself, and asking them for the opportunity for you to work in their lab or in their group. Then when they now accept, you then make the application. But for like social sciences, like my department, for instance, the funding is centrally controlled. So you just have to apply, get in touch with the program coordinator and apply. And once you get admission, the funding is centrally controlled. So it doesn't come from, the professors and the likes. So I think that then GRE is also another element. I had to write GRE at this age, old age. I was like, what is going on? How do I, I had to even go to weekend classes because I was working in Nigeria. Then Saturdays, Sundays, I was like, what is going on? What was the, I wrote the exam and, I got a good score. I was even very, very surprised because when I came out, everybody was crying. And I was telling myself when I wrote GRE that if I don't get the cutoff, the threshold they were looking for, that I would drop it entirely and continue what I was doing. Maybe go to South Africa for my PhD. I was even already speaking to professors in South Africa because it's also kind of cheaper there and the likes, and the proximity to Nigeria, so you can be working and doing that. Yeah, but what I mean in essence is that you have to be ready from day one and start reaching out to professors, know the schools, start looking at their research interests, looking for who to work with. Because in your personal statement, just like Dr. Gunnar was saying, you have to say those research interests. You have to mention them in that personal statement. And in our own case, you have to even mention professors you could work with. So if you don't have, and even when you go for visa interview, they will ask you, which professor are you going to work with? There are some questions they will ask you. Why do you even want to go to that school? Why do you want this? Why do you want that? And just like Dr. Gunnar was saying, there should be logical connections from your personal statement to your recommendation letters to even what you say during the visa interview. There should be logical connections. There should be that flow. And stuff. I don't know if I've answered your question, regarding how application is different here. And once you just, application window is normally from end of, so like if you're targeting fall next year, that is August next year, you have to start applying from like October, November this year into early next year. Admission, applications in the US closes earlier than other countries. I know in the UK you can even apply in May, June, but in the US, I think it closes around February. Like my department is February, especially when you're an international student looking for funding. The application, is kind of, so it's just all about being intentional, having a straight story, and executing it.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Can I
Lucky.
should be something?
Yes, please. Yes, please, go ahead.
Very quick, so
Of course. But yes, and just mentioning that, I also want to mention here, I think because of time, I mean, we still have 1 hour, but we have a lot of questions that we need to go through, so we can make our
So one thing, I'm gonna make it very straight point. You do not need to have a master's to go for your PhD in the US. In my lab, I had my undergraduate in Nigeria who graduated. He came over immediately, and we were lab mates. That was fun. So interestingly, he had two SARS. So he would call our advisor Dr. Raj, and then we call me sir. So he was still calling me sir inside the lab. So why was that possible? Because he just moved straight from his finishing in biochemistry UNIZIK and coming over here almost immediately. You do not need a master's to go for your PhD. And then to clarify more about what Lucky has said. So this is one of the frustrations I have with people. Give us the name of scholarships in the UX. They don't typically have names. They are packaged within graduate assistantship. What does that mean? And the operation of this is different in different universities. It's different in R1, R2, the way those things are kind of like structured. I understood this because I moved from one university to the other. So, and the department too. So take, for instance, most of the basic life sciences, they teach a lot of classes. They have a lot of undergraduate that are teaching physics, chemistry, biology, all of those. So what happens, they hire a lot of graduate students directly into the department. So the department hires them, the department gives admission. There's no contribution to the professor saying, I need this sort of student. No. So they hire you straight into the department as a graduate teaching assistant. When you begin so I was a graduate teaching assistant for 2 years. What that meant was that my department was paying me and paying my tuition. In my 3rd year, my advisor made me a graduate research assistant. What that meant was that my advisor was then paying me and paying my tuition. So they know how they reconcile all of those things. And we must understand here that education is business in the US. So the professors are rich. By the time I left my undergrad, my PhD professor, she was nearing like 10 million US dollars in funding. She was very rich. She's still very rich. She got more money. So she has money to hire graduate students. So when we moved to something like Emory, it was a little more difficult because Emory University is more like there are more graduate students than undergraduates. So there isn't a lot of more teaching. So the professor pays more of the students. So the availability of the professors, the students what they want to hire, determines how many number of students the department hires in a year. But still, it was still the department that gives the whole admission before the professors can select the students they want to. So this is the challenge that sometimes students are applying, they are reaching to professors, you read the professors, no, just apply. The department gets the admission. So that mapping, is very important. The mapping is very important. Know the basic requirement across different schools. Even within the same school, there are differences. Take, for instance, at Auburn University, you don't apply through graduate school first in chemistry department. You apply to chemistry department first. When chemistry department gives you when chemistry department accepts you, they recommend you to graduate school for application. So in that way, you don't pay application fee if they don't give you admission. So even within the same university, there are differences in how these things are structured. So looking for graduate school is full-time job. You must map the different universities, the different departments, and know the things that are required. Thank you.
And Choma, not that we're trying to steal the whole stuff, yeah, but I mean we're in the US here. But if you're wondering how you can, get the information regarding whether to go through a professor or to just apply through in your application, or whether to go through the department in the application and all that. So once you just get to the landing page of the program, right, you'll see information, the contact details of like the PhD, the program coordinator or director, either master's or PhD. You just email the person and ask any question that you want. They respond immediately. Any question that you want, any question that you have, you just throw it to them. They will respond immediately. Yeah. So just feel free in reaching out to them and the likes.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see the US team are on fire, but thank you very much. So now I'm coming to the Europe team. And Dr. Casey, I know I mentioned you earlier, but I would like to start with Timse so that Timse can talk a little bit about the masters, and then you can talk a bit about the PhD application in Europe. Okay, is that okay? Okay, perfect. So Timse, I come to you. The same question: how is it for Europe? I mean, you have experience in Germany.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was about to say, right? So I think experiences may slightly vary across countries. I can really speak to Germany, and I must say that I think Germany is a place where a lot of Nigerians overlook. We all want to go. Everybody wants to go to the US. Everybody wants to go to Canada or UK because that's of course where English is the main language. But I think for people, when you are deciding on where you want to go to, I think it's important to ask yourself which countries are excellent in my field, right? For me, that was a question that I asked, and how I ended up in Germany. It wasn't just because I was out of options. I wanted to do renewable energy, so I asked myself which countries were good in my field and which country would be the best place for me to learn, and that's how Germany came up on my list. So Germany is, I got a DAD scholarship, and I can, should I say, really speak to that. DAD is a fully funded scholarship from the German government, unlike our US people. So when you get a master's scholarship here, if you get a master's scholarship from the DAD, you absolutely don't even need to be a graduate assistant. So it's like someone basically paying you to just come and school. Everything is absolutely free. From your visa application is free, it's fast, to your fully funded flight from Germany to Nigeria, including bringing over your family if you're married. And then also, once you land here, you get enrolled in language classes. Of course, the courses would most likely be in English. I think all the DAD courses that I know are in English. So it's not like you're going to have to start them learn German to be able to school, but you would still, they will still offer you German language courses to help you with everyday life, and that the bill is on them. And they basically pay you stipends every month. So I find this, when I told people I got this scholarship and I was telling people about the benefit, people were like, "Oh, how come we've never heard about it? How come we've never?" I'm like, "Yeah, because it's not US, it's not it's not UK." But the DAD scholarship is fully funded, and it's I think I feel like you really get it on a platter of gold, in the sense that it's quite easy. You don't have to go looking for a professor or finding professors like the US team has mentioned. For me, which I would also want to say to everyone, right? So you really need to know what you want. Like I said, also knowing which country you want to go to, but also knowing what you want. I didn't want to do full-blown research. I didn't want to start doing a 4-year research for a PhD, right? I've always been a field person. I wanted to go back to the industry as soon as possible, go work. I didn't want to spend most of my life, spend another 4 or 5 years doing research. So that's why I wanted a taught master's. So I needed a master's degree where I'm taught 1-2 years and I'm out. And that's what made me also go for this. Just to add to that, so I think the key thing I would point out in coming to Germany or in applying for DAD scholarships as a whole is very early. It's even earlier than the US people, right? So for you to, if you want to come here like next year, you should have submit applications by this October, right? It's always like a year in advance. It's not even next year. So it's pretty easy. If you go to the DAD portal, so just DAAD.de, they offer a lot of scholarships. They offer scholarships that are specifically for people from developing countries. They offer scholarships for people who are also not in STEM, but also in arts. They offer scholarships for any other. So they have a scholarship that is really focused for STEM. Then they have a scholarship that is focused for public policies and arts. And then they also have scholarships that are, should I say, for everybody. So they have a whole lot of options. You can go through their websites, filter your course, and then you will see which universities are offering the courses. Typically, the application would have to go to the university, because what they do is that partners with universities. And then they know how they give it. I think they give slots to these universities. For instance, they'll tell a particular university, we can sponsor like 5 students in your course. So you would have to check what the school wants. When you filter, you see the schools that are on, that has they have a whole brochure, right, that lists which courses are eligible for that scholarship, which universities are also eligible under those courses. So you would have to apply to the school. You go to the school, you find out what are the application requirements, you check all those requirements, and then as you're applying to the school for admission, you're also submitting an application for the DAD scholarship. So it's like using two stones to kill one bird. And if the school selects you, automatically they nominate you for the DAD scholarship. and you get both admission and the scholarship at once. So I would say for people who are interested, don't let the language be, you don't even, I still till today don't know how, I don't know if Dr. Casey can speak fluently. I'm still struggling with the language every day. We all survive on English, so don't let German be a demotivating factor. But I think people, Germany is really, it's the home of engineering, it's a home to a lot of industries. Medicine, I would also say, IT is also a very booming sector. So if this is something that would interest you, they offer scholarships for both masters and PhD. I'm sure Dr. Casey will speak about the PhD. And it's a very, 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 I would say the most free scholarship I've come across, like very free, and you literally get this on a platter of gold. So anyone who is interested, please just quickly like search that.de, and you would, they have a very, very, they provide a lot of resources, a lot of information that you would need to support you. Thanks.
Choma, so sorry, Tim, your question I have is, what makes you competitive for that?
Yes, so
what you graduated with, or what you've been, so just
okay, so what makes you competitive for that? Of course, you need a 2-1 is a minimum. You need to have a 2-1, and then it's back to all the things that we've listed. So your personal statements, your recommendation letters, and they also do require 2 years working experience. So you need to have worked in that field for at least 2 years. So your 2-1, at least 2 years working experience in that field. And then, of course, your recommendation letters, like we've talked about. If you're currently working, they will need to see a letter from your employer speaking to your experience and how you how you're fit for this. So you don't have to write an exams for it, but and this is where the whole thing we've talked about, personal statement, comes into play. You need to be able to tell your story, and you need to be able to make sure that the people who are recommending you, your references, really speak to you, because that's all what really makes the difference in your application. Because already everybody's going to have 2-1. Nobody's going to apply if they don't have a 2-1. So what really sets you apart are your documents and your story.
And just to add to that, also, I'm also a DAT scholar, so just to add to that a little bit, they also require your English language proficiency exam, so your IELTS. So having a good score in IELTS could also be something that sets you apart. And also, additionally, for me, I think it was also accepted when I submitted my proof that my undergraduate was done in English. So it depends on what works for who at the point in time you are applying. Yeah, and that also has when you're searching that, please pay attention to the courses that are taught in English and the courses that are taught in German. They're usually written there. They sponsor both some courses that are also taught in German. So when you're selecting, be sure of what you are selecting. And even if you're selecting the one taught in German, they also offer, I think, 1 year core German course, after which you then get into your own course, which is really an awesome opportunity they also provide to scholars. One other thing with DAAD is I also have a feeling that applying early, because they do first come, first serve. So applying early could actually give you much more opportunity. If, for instance, everybody meets the same distance, then they start choosing from first come, first serve. So if you want to apply, target the day the portal is opening and submit on that day. This will be my advice, right? Okay, now that Dr. Casey is back, I'll hand over to you to tell us a little bit about PhD application in Europe.
Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear, yes.
Yeah, I think I may not be able to stay after perhaps this my submission. I'm now getting quite the headache, but I think I can spend about 5 minutes on this. So first, the application in Europe is quite broad. I think the last speaker already mentioned that, but I need to maybe specifically differentiate, right? So just like in the US, you talk of fellowship, teaching assistant or graduate assistantship, you talk of fellowship and funding or funded programs. In Europe, that's where you have scholarships, right? And these are specific. So you have specific scholarship. That is an example of a specific scholarship. It has this process. You've heard that very clearly outlined. You also have the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, right? The Erasmus Mundus is perhaps the biggest scholarship in Europe that I know of. Usually they have over 100 programs. Each of those programs, when they are funded, funds around 15 to 20 students. So you see, times 100, that's a lot of students that are funded every year. And this scholarship cuts across different countries. So they usually minimum of 2 countries, usually more than 2, at least minimum of 2 degrees. So I was also in the Erasmus Mundus program. That's why I have a double degree. Some people in the program have a triple degree because they have to move between 3 different countries in the course of 2 years. But just as a scholarship means that you get the money, you don't have any obligation. Okay, you are simply given money to study, and that's it. So you study and then you get money every month, and that's all you have to do is to give in your best. Then another example of a scholarship is what is known as the NAWA scholarship in Poland, right, from the Polish government, similar to that in Germany, NAWA in Poland. And NAWA funds, again, for 2 years program in Poland. Then there is also recently one from Italy. I'm just trying to remember the name, but it's also kind of an Italian-specific scholarship that funds also 2 years for you to do your master's in Italy. Then you also have, of course, you have the Commonwealth, right? We know very much the Commonwealth for the UK. That's also one of the biggest, perhaps the biggest scholarship body that I know of. Then you also have the Chevening, also in the UK. See, these are really specific scholarships. And these scholarships, all the scholarships that I've caught so far are peculiar to masters. But it's not specific to, some are specific to countries, like Chevening in the UK, Commonwealth in the UK, that in Germany. You also have MasterCard, right? So MasterCard is another scholarship, usually for masters, but also spread across different countries in Europe. And sometimes it's even covering, I think there's also MasterCard in Canada, to Colombia, British Columbia, for example.
I think there's one in the US too.
Exactly. Yeah, I think for Alabama. Yeah, so they have MasterCard in Alabama. So these are specific, but the reason I'm saying this is like in Europe, if you are looking for a scholarship, you have to look for specific name of the scholarship. And each of these scholarships have their own requirements, their own starting time, deadline. Even Erasmus Mundus, none of those 2 programs are similar, right? So they have the rules that you have to follow. I think in the past when I was there, you could only apply to 3 programs maximum. But now it seems you can apply to more than 3, but these are highly competitive programs. Now, let's come to the PhD. In Europe, the PhD is a bit, I would say, mostly university focused, right? Apart from, let's say the Marie Curie, or they call it the Marie Curie ITN project, right? That is funding PhDs. I'm just trying to remember any specific funding that is on PhDs, but instead you have universities, professors that have funding. For example, in Germany, most professors have money to employ students, okay, as PhDs. And those fundings are usually given as what they call 50% contract, or rather they give the students the 49%. Because if you are above 50, as you know, Choma, you are here in Germany, if you are above 50%, you are not a student. So you can get a 49% contract. And what that means is that the professor is paying, or rather paying you to do some type of support as a PhD. It could be like lab supervision, graduate student, results, test grading. They don't do a lot, sometimes tutorial, right? So the PhDs are sometimes doing tutorials and you are getting paid. And since usually in Germany, PhDs are not usually like paid like you have in the US, you don't have tuition for PhD, at least in Germany. You have it in France, but not in Germany. So the professor pays you and then you do that other 50% of your time is for your research, but 50% you are doing some kind of support to the professor. In the Netherlands, they have similar kind of funding, but they get 100%. So means if you want, thinking of a lot of money to get a PhD, Netherlands will be the place that you can get more money as a PhD versus in Germany. But of course, what I do see is that some of those internal PhDs are highly competitive. And usually the professors, at least from what I've seen, usually want to keep their students, right? So in my lab, when I was doing my PhD, those that were internal funded, I was funded by the Marie Curie, so I was funded by the EU, so I was kind of an external funded PhD in the group. But most of those that were doing the internal funding from the professor did their masters there, did their bachelor there, right? So it makes more sense for the professor to keep the students as they graduate from their bachelor to their masters and then into their PhD than taking someone externally that they don't even know. So it's even much more difficult, right, for you to come in and secure that kind of internal funding. In France, it's a bit different because they have more, in my opinion, they have much more funding around the PhD than I see it in Germany. So if you are thinking of a place where you can, go to a university as even a start outsider and get a PhD shot, I think it will be more in France than I see in Germany. So when it comes to PhD, in my opinion, US is the place that you have endless opportunity for a PhD compared to Europe by far. So if you think of a PhD and you have the stamina, right? Because remember, in the US, you don't just do a PhD, you are also really employed. In fact, you are paid from your TA to be there. So that's a job. You are doing a job. And then on top of this, you are doing your research. So I know this a lot. Again, a lot of my mentees are there, but my wife is also doing a PhD in the US. So it takes a lot more of your time, in my opinion, than when I was doing my PhD in Europe. I just had to focus on my PhD. I did a bit of lab support, etc., but it wasn't it wasn't a lot of my time. Let's put it that way, right? So I hope this gives, again, the summary is there is really no one shoe fits all. Coming down to what Dr. Ogona said from the beginning, you have to be intentional. You have to get familiar with where you want to be. Then each of those places, I would even say start from what you really want to do. But then when you start looking for positions, you need to think about it from the place of how do I become what they are looking for? It's not what they wouldn't become what you want them, they wouldn't become what you want them to be. You have to become what they want you to be. So when you are looking for fundings, don't look at it from, I cannot go to Mexico, or I cannot go to Texas, or if somebody is giving me money, I go everywhere, right? I have to go and study. That's my philosophy. I mean, I've grown a bit, but the point is, don't make choice when you have. I always say, don't choose what you don't have. You can't choose when you don't have something. Get everything, then you can make a choice. You can't choose what they have not even given you, and then you reduce your chances of even applying, right? So I would say, put yourself out there. Don't just put yourself out there. I believe in less is more. Don't spend time trying to submit 100 applications when none of them are worthy of one application. Okay, it's not about how many applications you are putting out there. It's about how good the application you are putting. And I can tell you, you need to see your scholarship journey as a job, right? To make one good application takes time. From your motivation letter, you saw, I really like the way that, again, Dr. Ogona put in the structure. How do you, I always say that what makes you different from someone else is your experience, but not just your experience, what you are doing with that experience, right? And when you bring this, your experience, and you can see the way he could create that connection, but you start that connection not from yourself. You start that connection from what they are looking out for. An ID candidate is a candidate that has what they are looking for and can give them and can position himself as being as the program giving them what that person is looking for. So you have to you make yourself an ID candidate, and you always start from the future. The future is what that program is offering. And then you begin to work yourself backward and start looking at your life. Where have I shown that I did something like this? Okay, it might not be the most important thing in your life, but you have to make it the most important that fits into that story that you are trying to tell. So you don't start from yourself and say, okay, I was this and this and this, and then all of a sudden you skip and nobody understood how you jumped from wanting to solve electrical problem to being a surgeon. You can't create that kind of connection. So you need to start from them and work yourself backward. That's always my idea. You start from what is the objection? What is the What are these programs looking out for? What are the requirements? What are the skill sets they are looking out for? What do they want to do with people that graduate from this program? Where do they want them to end up? Then I would take that, bring it to myself and say, okay, where do I want to end up that fits their story? What have I done in my life? This comes back to that intentionality. Have I done a research work in that area? Do I start trying to do research work in that area because I know I want to end up in that particular direction? And this is the way you build yourself. So it's a lot of work to make one good application. Okay, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort. We could talk on how to prepare your CV for an entire day, right? But you cannot have one CV for all your programs. It just tells me that you are not specific enough, right? The same with your recommendation. I always recommend, because I know professors can be very busy. I know how many recommendations I write every year. And so I recommend my mentees and also my students, and it's the same thing that my professor would tell me, to draft the recommendation letter myself, okay? I can draft it to fit that specific need, and I will send it to them. In fact, when I reach out to them, I always offer that. I know you are very busy. Would you mind if I draft this, at least the key points that need to be captured in the recommendation, and share with you? And I will also attach my CV. I have a professor that would tell me, no, he always writes his own himself, but he does a good job, right? So don't expect that, again, you don't have a relationship with the professor, you make it difficult for them to be able to tell anything about you. It's not because they are bad, it's because they can't really help your application. But all of this needs to, each of your application, your recommendation, your motivation, your CV, they all need to tell the same story. They all need to connect. It needs to be seamlessly connected. So, like I said, I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer. I'm really having a headache. So I would please that I excuse myself, but it has been really nice to get to meet all of you. And thank you so much for your kind invitation. And I hope we stay in touch. I'm always quite impressed when I see what people do by taking out themselves out of the equation and see how their life can be a blessing to others. So nobody is going to do this for us, right? And it's so nice to see that people are standing up, we are standing up, we are voicing out and giving people a chance, giving people hope. You know, I think that's the biggest gift anyone can ever give to anyone else. So thank you guys very much. Keep up the good work. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Dr. Casey. I want to say thank you very much for sharing with us from the wealth of your experiences, and we wish you very quick recovery. Yeah, thank you.
And we look forward to a potential partnership between the camp and the bridge. So towards
absolutely, let's do that. Let's do that.
You sure said we are all right?
We are always a work in progress, all of us.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think that was already very heated. And you know, the beautiful thing about this conversation is from one question, we answered almost all the questions I have. So we are very good on time. So I'm going to be skipping a couple of the questions because we already attended to them. The scholarship and funding applications, I think we attended to most of them already while we were trying to share our experiences. Application timing, we also attended to that. So I'm going to go to one question that seems to still be popping out here that has not been attended to: self-sponsorship. What is self-sponsorship like in the US, and what would it look like in Germany? So this I would like to ask Dr. Gunnar, I would like to start with you. If one wants to do self-sponsorship in US, what does this look like? And also Tim say, I think self-sponsorship.
Lucky is already shaking his head like, like don't do it or it's not possible.
Okay, I typically have a saying: if your father or husband is not a Nigerian politician, don't try it. Even if he's a businessman in Alaba, don't still try it. The reason for that is we've seen a lot of Africans stranded here. Stranded here. 3 weeks ago, we had a beach camp before school started. Had like a beach camp, and we had a lady who came in there, and her daughter is going to school here. She then said, when they started this journey 3 years ago, he said the tuition in Nigeria in value was like 10 million. But right now, that is 55 million. Because they're earning naira and they pay school fees in dollars. And you know, like the dollar has been doing dancing a lot. So, and you could see a lot of stress on the woman. That's a high school that's the undergraduate even the child. The child was in an undergraduate. So you understand where I'm going. If your parents are not super rich, and the super rich people in Nigeria are politicians. Why do we say that? Because politicians have a way of evolving. They have a way of evolving and making more money. A businessman cannot go to CBN and get a change in the way they want it, but politicians, they know how to do it. But the good news is that everyone who is truly desirous of this can get a scholarship. So why do you need to spend a whole lot of money? But if you must, I've equally seen like in public health, most times they don't have a lot of funding, but they have kind of partial funding. So you can look at that partial funding and say, oh, you can afford 50%. So they can come in and then they'll have like 20 hours of working, which is, just imagine even if they're paid $30 per hour. If they're paid $30 per hour for 20 hours a week, how much that could be. So the student, and the reason for this again is a student who essentially the parents can bring this amount of money. They are not used to suffering in the first place. They're not essentially used to suffering in the first place. And they get here and nothing, they can't find money to feed. It's difficult to adjust. So if you must do self-sponsorship, make sure you have the money for the program at hand before you start. So if the program is supposed to cost you 40 million, or let's use it's supposed to cost you $50,000, have it at hand and put it in American currency, in the US, put it in dollars, so that you know your money is safe. Because if you're coming from an economy that is weak, anything can happen and can keep the student very stranded. And this goes a lot too to we see more of self-sponsorship in undergraduate. Nigeria, there are a lot of Nigerian undergraduates who are sponsoring themselves. Some of them are lucky, they go to the very expensive schools in Lagos, in Abuja, and the whole Nigeria. So they guide them through a scholarship application. But this is possible to the general public. If your child is finishing high school, finishing secondary school, there are a couple of ways they can get like admission to study for undergraduate, fully funded. Women sometimes have even an age. There are a lot of schools here that are fully for women, and they can easily get in. I know this is below, we're talking of graduate school, but I'm talking of undergraduate. People don't understand the difference most times. So be sure that if you want your child to come here to do undergraduate, there are a lot of read about SAT. They have to write SAT. They have to look for special funding. But if you want to do self-sponsorship, be sure that the funding for that is ready and deposited in the US, in the UK, in Germany account before the student steps out. So I am totally against self-funding if you don't have enough money for that, or hoping that some miracle will happen. The money will just come overnight. It is a big risk.
Thank you very much, Ogonna. Lucky you were completely like, no, don't do it. Don't do it.
No, because it's suicide. I know also looking at the exchange rate crisis, right? Because I earn in Nigeria. Yeah, so I consult in Nigeria and in Nigeria, and it is terrible. Like when you convert and move here, so even just the exchange rate crisis already, is a serious indication that it shouldn't be the way to go. And just like Doc mentioned, if you're serious about doing your master's or PhD in the US, if you're very serious and determined, you'll get funding. There are over 4,000 universities in the US. 4,000 universities. So there are so many universities, and even beyond that, like I mentioned, my thesis is that international students are required to meet, the supply deficits of university professors in the US. That's my thesis. I don't know how that's just an anecdotal, stuff. So because even like here in Auburn, our graduate school dean was in Nigeria the other day, to recruit international students. They are looking for who will come and do this PhD. So if you're very, very good and you've positioned yourself very well, you'll be able to. And just like Dr. Gonna also mentioned, when I came here and I was seeing people that from bachelor's to PhD, I didn't believe it. I was like, how? Like, how on earth? But it shows you the kind of possibilities that are here, that from bachelor's in Nigeria, you can actually come here straight, and do your PhD. Yeah, but getting into the empirics, I think is suicide, because of two reasons. One, when you move here, you are an F1 student, right? So as an F1 student, you can only do 20 hours per week, right? And you can't work outside the university. Yeah, so you can only work within the university. And most times, the kind of jobs you'll find within the university are, all those some of these pedestrian jobs, like.
Okay. Can you
Sorry.
hear him? Oh,
Yeah, can you guys
go
hear
ahead.
me?
We can hear you
Yes,
So
now.
we heard you.
So if you're doing $20 per week within the university, and you do for that's $20 at 20 hours per week, that's $400. So in a month is $1,600. That's the money for your self-care and the likes, paying your rent, your feeding. And so how do you even start paying the tuition? And the tuition is always very, very substantial. So where do you even start from? You can't work outside the university. It's illegal. You can only work within the university. So that's why the US designed, if you don't get graduate assistantship, it will be extremely difficult for you to execute a graduate program here, because it won't be easy. Where do you get the money from? And second is also considering the fact that, just like I mentioned, when you have funding, it makes your visa interview very seamless. If you don't have funding and your I-20, where they have that balance, is showing like 50 something $1,000. Where do you start? Yeah, so just like Dr. Gonna mentioned, unless your parents are politicians, that's the only way, or very, very, very wealthy, business people. That's the only, and you have to still defend it. If you're not organized, if you're not speaking with a lot of confidence, and you don't convince them, you're not convincing them that you really have this money, you are being denied visa immediately. I know I have friends that have been denied, several, because they don't have funding. Once for others, once they have funding, they get visa, they pass their visa interview. So it has implication on how your visa interview is going to eventuate, and it also has implications on, like, because it will be difficult for you to work and meet up with paying that. And just like Dr. Gonna said, you can do, for me, even before, because like, if for me to spend 50 million naira for like a master's program overseas, I won't sleep well. I'm an Anambra man in Nigeria. I'm from Anambra in Nigeria. I will be thinking about so many things. Is it to give some money to some of my secondary school colleagues at main market and main market at Onitsha to do so? Is a whole lot of money. So if you can actually get, graduate assistant full funding to execute this thing, why would you have to, pass
And
through
such
that?
money.
Yeah, of paying for it. There are so many other things you can do with that money.
Yeah.
So is suicide to me is very, very difficult. Unlike that, like in the UK, Canada, you can work outside the university, and you can work as long as you want to be able to pay your tuition, and also have your sort out your living expenses. But in the US, you can't work outside the university. It's a serious, so graduate program here, has to be fully funded for it to worth it for you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your submission, Loki. Then I'm coming to you, Tim. Say, is it the same in Germany? Is it the
Yeah,
same?
so for us, I wouldn't say it's a suicide, right? I think it is possible. I don't know what classification I would say. Maybe the very upper middle class in Nigeria should be able to afford education in Germany, and the reason is because tuition is free, absolutely free. Like you don't have to pay tuition. I think only maybe very few universities, like 5% of the universities in Germany, have tuitions. So for us, tuition is free. The only thing you need to put in place is a monthly living allowance, which is an amount that you would have to block for a year. So if your master's is, let's say, 2 years, which is typically the case in Germany, the embassy would need to see at least that amount blocked for a year for them to even grant you visa before you come. But to err on the side of caution, and like Dr. Judy already said, I would say have the money for the 2 years, right? You don't want to run chances. Have the money for the 2 years converted to euro, to a foreign currency. Um, Currently, I think the monthly stipend is about 934 euros a month. It's a money set by the government. That's how much if you want to study in Germany, whether it's bachelor's or master's. PhD is slightly higher, but bachelor or master's, you need to have 934 euros per month. For the 2 years, I think that will come up to about the 22,000 euros, which at current rates is like 38 million naira. So if you have that amount blocked, yes, you can get a visa to come, and you have an admission. Embassy will definitely grant you a visa to come here. Here too, it's possible to work outside the university. There is a national regulation. I think you can do, it used to be 120, but now I think you can do like 280 half working day. So half working day is like working 4 hours a day. So you can do 280 half working days in a year. So as a student, I came in here in like August. I started working in January the following year, and I worked all through my master's program. So it's very possible to work, and actually very beneficial, because I would even tell someone, even if you don't need the money, please work, because it helps you to gather work experience. It helps you when you come out and then you say you're looking for a job. Even though I worked 5 years in Nigeria, I can tell you the work experience I had here stood out more, or was more convincing for my current employer to be able to hire me. So it's quite beneficial. You can work outside. So it's not suicidal like in the US. It's possible. It's also, especially because also you can work and raise some money on the side. But of course, please, if you have an opportunity for funding, and also if you are poor like most of us, right, please find funding. There's funding, and its life is a whole lot easier than just tying up that amount of funds in funding, or in paying for doing self sponsorship. But yes, it's a bit easier in Germany. You can do it for about 40 million plus or minus.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Tim Say, for that. I would also add, from the Europe point of view things, so the blocked account we're talking about is basically your money. So you're blocking it only to show the government that you have the capability to take care of yourself, and you have enough money to take care of yourself when you're here. So unlike what we have in US, they ensure that you have enough money to make you
Before
not
you come.
stranded here. So what happens with that money is that on a monthly basis, the government releases that amount of money they know you need for monthly care from this your blocked account. So you block that amount of money, you don't have access to this money. Every month they release for you what you need for 1 month. It's like they're paying you from your blocked money account to ensure you have enough to be able to take care of your expenses every month. So that money you're blocking is literally yours. And just like Timsy said, it's also good if you can work, because if you work, you might literally not have to use that money, but use whatever you've gotten, if you can manage very well, right? To sustain yourself, and then you roll this money over for the next year to also sustain you, because every year you need to block a new amount of money for the new new year. So just so that you don't get it wrong, I agree with her when she said it's not suicide in Germany. So you can self-sponsor in Germany.
Yeah.
And also, I think in UK, I've also heard a couple of persons mention that you can pay a part, get to UK, you work as a student, and you pay yourself through school. So this
You said that
also,
UK is more expensive, right? So there's
yes,
tuition in
yes,
UK.
it's exactly. And Germany has no tuition for most of the schools, unless you're going towards private schools. But if you're going for the government schools, you usually don't have any tuition. And what you basically pay for is like semester dues or something like this. That is roughly about between 100 to 300, depending on the school that you're in. So
Yeah, but okay, Choma, let me just add one thing that I missed. So I think a general tip for anyone would be, when you block this amount that is set by the government, right, is a flat rate. But as a key, please don't come looking for it. Don't try looking for a university in Munich. You can come to Munich, but you will need to spend more, right? Or in Berlin, for instance. So this amount would be very, very convenient if you find a university that is in a smaller town. That's a
exactly.
tip, right? You don't need to be where life is happening. You will come out when you're done with school, because in bigger cities, although this is a flat rate across, but it could be, you may not be able to even afford rent, or you spend all that money on rent, and then you are barely scraping by. But if you are able to get a university in a smaller town, then that money is more than enough, and you have something left to take care of yourself.
Yeah, by the way, Choma and Team C, I think this current forest regime is something else. Like I think USD USD naira rate now is around what is it? Is it 117 now?
Yeah,
180.
The current forex regime. Yeah, 17. The current, and I think pounds is like 2 2 or 2 3. The forest regime like I have someone that is I know someone that is like a billionaire in naira, right? He has like 3 kids in the UK. He's crying, and the kids are actually in very expensive universities in the UK, like very, very top universities there. So he's really like, even those that have kids overseas and that's
It's expensive, exactly.
Yeah, it is. It is.
that crying, like that crying literally.
Yeah.
What I would also add, okay, sorry. Yeah, what I also want to add with respect to self-funding is that even if you must explore that you want to do that, you can look at cheap tuition. Cheap tuition, other cheap tuition places in in Europe that wouldn't require you to lack money. Like I know about Czech Republic, for instance. Tuition is very, very cheap in Czech Republic, even in Portugal, and you don't have to lock money down, for you to get educated there. Just to mention that.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, we have 20 minutes, or a little bit 17 minutes remaining. So I would want us to use this to attend to some of the questions in the chat. Because I think we've handled majority of the questions that we have, and we have also been sharing from our own personal experiences. So now we could attend to some of the questions on the chat. And I have one person asking, how do I go about the issue with letter of recommendation? My lecturers feel reluctant sending one on my behalf, or generally helping students. How can I go about this? So anybody can answer.
I mean, I think Dr. Casey stated this before he left, and it resonated with me because this is also something that I did. I think when we go to these lecturers, first and foremost, they are very busy. Secondly, you may not have really had a very good personal relationship with them, which we are emphasizing. And then you're now going to them at the dying minute and telling them you need this. So the key, which is also what I did in my case, is give them a draft, right? So I go to them, I have this, please sir, I have this is what they need. I've already done a draft, because it's really good that you can influence what is written. You don't just need a letter. You need something that is written and written well, highlighting the needs of where you're applying to. Again, you may need like 10 different recommendation letters depending on the schools and depending on the requirements. So offering to give them a draft, I think, could be a motivation for them. It could make them see that, they don't need to sit down and think of what to do. They're just basically going to have to review what you've written, maybe add 1 or 2 points or subtract 1 or 2 points. That could be a faster way to approach them than you just going and telling them, write something from scratch for me. Because honestly, in as much as they want to, they may not have the time to. So making that that offer of offering them a draft could go a long way.
Thank you very much, Timse, for that. I also see another question. Someone is asking, can you list some scholarship boards to apply for PhD students? Scholarship boards. I mean, I don't. Maybe Jide, maybe you can answer this, because I know we mentioned during the discussion there are no particular boards where you see it's majorly schools. You need to check first and foremost. I think Mr. Lucky mentioned it severally. You need to map what do you want to do, and then look for schools that are doing these things, and then search for them. You're doing in Europe or in US, you can decide to go through the professors, or you can decide to apply to the school. So this is the insight I got from the company. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Jide.
Yeah, I think if the person is on this phone, the person has every tool possible to know the schools that offer the course he wants to study. So the same so it means the Fine Fakes Chugu is on LinkedIn, right? So he's able to log into LinkedIn. So the same way, he can use his phone right now and type, schools in the US, schools in UK, schools in Europe that offer scholarship in PhD scholarship in renewable energy. So what I will do if he does that for US is that he's going to bring more than 2,000 universities that have the programs in renewable energy, PhD programs in renewable energy, because they have scholarships. So the PhD here is basically free, like in Germany. So that takes care of it. Whatever you want, just type it on. So because we can tell you Shevlin, Erasmus Mundus, those ones are very competitive. And like Lucky, my journey with yours is kind of like similar. I wanted to go to Europe. Joma can remember. I wanted to go to Europe. I was applying to all of these Shevlin, Erasmus Mundus, all of them. That were the stuff I was applying. You know the reason? I did not want to write the English proficiency exam. I didn't want to. So, and GRE. So once you mentioned that, no, I don't know. I don't have energy for it. Now, in 2016, I was close to getting Shevlin, and they required TOEFL. I wrote TOEFL. And then they put me on standby list. And I got on the standby list. Then, as I was waiting for them to make a decision, a friend from the US called, Sister Amara called, "Oh, Governor, what are you still doing in Unizik? What is it you're doing in Unizik? You need to get out of there." And luckily, that period, my sister came back and was traveling back to the US. So I was the last person she was speaking with on the plane while she was leaving. And you hear all those things, all the announcement and the flight, the fizzy. Like, inside of me, I was like, I need to get I need to get on this plane as soon as possible. I really need to leave this plane. I need to get on this plane. And I made that commitment. So a few days after was when Sister Amara called and said, "What are you doing? You need to get it." And then I did one application to Auburn University. And this is where preparation meets opportunity. True. That's it. I had a TOEFL already. Auburn did not require GRE. They required a TOEFL. And they had already finished application process. The application was over. They had given admission to, like my lab mate Victor, had already got his admission. But I applied immediately. I applied. And the HOD replied me, "Oh, we are almost the end, but let's hear back from the students who were given admission." It took like another year for me to learn. A student who was given admission was sick. He couldn't come. So I took his place. So I took his place. So there was someone who didn't want to come. That's how I got on board. But that application, they would not have looked at it if I didn't have my TOEFL. So, but what I'm saying is that that's the one application I made to the US, just one. I didn't make two, and that's how it is. So, and that is, I got into urban. I could have got into more than 3,000 universities in the US that offer PhD in chemistry. So there, almost every school has this. If you are like in the basic sciences, almost every school has those the departments, and they offer scholarship. Don't be limited by the names of the scholarship. If you go to Chevron, a lot of Nigerians apply to Chevron. A lot of them apply to Erasmus. These are well known. The competition is more there. The competition, the Nigerian language, the competition, they're tight.
So, I'm on that list. I can't remember how many times I wrote Chevron. A lot of times.
Yeah, so the competition, they're tight. So, but what is tighter in the US is the discipline to sit down, write GRE, write TOEFL. Once you have done those, you can. And I'm coming here again. This is my normal language. Those students I've mentored will be surprised I have not said this up to now. Moving forward, if you come to me for mentorship to get a graduate school application in the US, I tell you two things. Before we begin any discussion, you must have your TOEFL, you must have your GRE. It does not matter to me if you studied in English, because the reason is so many of these schools, they know you studied in English, but they will still want to see that. Some of the schools do not require GRE, I know. But if you think about these things, we have more applications. Those who do not require it, we have less application. This is from my experience. Because people do not want to write GRE, they will not have a lot of people apply to them because they don't want to write. So the competition will be lesser in those places that have higher requirements. So once you are young, why can't you do it? You just do it, increase their chances. So you tell me they're not required. Yes, I know they're not required everywhere, but they are required in some places. I want you to go to those places where they are required because their chances increase in those places. It's just strategy. This is from my experience in grad school, in undergraduate. I'm going to come because this is very important. How did I become the best graduating with first class? If you come to a class, we are doing BCH 401. That is very hard. Everybody is struggling in BCH 401 to get C. They don't study it. I will go and sleep in that difficult one. That is my competitive advantage. So in the BCH 421, it's easy. Everybody, I will put in the same level of effort they are putting. I can make 70. But then in BCH 401, I can make 70 again and 80. So I will become, so that the margin between me and the next person was too much because of that. Doing the things other people did not want to do set me apart. And that is what I still apply even in my job till today. And it typically takes you further than any other person. That's my submission.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. DJ. I think we have been able to answer all the questions I see from the comments at the moment.
Yeah, there is another one, Chief. There's another one there. Peter is asking, can you rewatch the session?
Yes, I already responded to him. I already wrote, yes, we can rewatch the session. It's all the sessions.
There is another one. Maybe someone can. There's this one too. You must have missed it.
I've heard that writing should be different from your CV. How true is it? Okay, for a good SOP, I have heard that the writing should be different from your CV. How true is it? And how can it be done? Okay, before we go into answering this question, I must mention we have 7 minutes. So whoever is going to answer, please, let's make it like 1 minute or 2 minutes, please. Okay? Anybody can take the question.
Not me.
I think I can answer the question, okay, right?
That's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think for me, and which we've also raised this, if this person was here earlier, the difference between SOP and CV is really, CV is basically, it's just a list, right? So you just write, you've worked here, this is what you did in this role, this is what. But SOP is really a story. Like, it's you really telling your story, right? And connecting the dots together. So who are you, right? I've seen that you studied, you had a bachelor's in this or this, but really, who are you? What is the motivation behind what you are studying or what you want to study. Where are you coming from, right? So what is your background in this field, any academic, any professional, what is your background? And then you're able to say, where are you going? You're really telling a story. Where are you going? And then where are you going doesn't need to be what you want to be in 50 years. So where do you hope to see yourself in the short to midterm? Where are you going? And then how does this course that you're going to do help you get there, right? So how does this course help you get to where you say you want to go? How does this university help you get there? So it's really about telling a story, who you are, where you want to go, and how this is going to help you go there. That's something I'm not going to see in your CV. In your CV, I'm just going to say that, oh, you've worked for, or you've not even worked, or you have a BSc, a bachelor's in this. It doesn't tell me anything about you. Why do you want to study my course? What do you hope to get from it? Why should I admit you? Why should I give you a scholarship? These are things that I'm going to see in an SOP, which I'm not going to see in a CV. How do I know you're going to be committed to finish it? What other, do you understand? So it's really a storyline where you connect your past with your future, and how what you are currently asking them for, how this program and this scholarship is going to help you get to the future. I can't find that on your CV. Your CV is just going to tell me what you've done. It's only going to tell me your past. So there's a clear difference between the two.
Okay, thank you very much, Timsy, for answering that in exactly 2 minutes. So I have one last one for someone who can pick it up in 1 minute. And the person says, my question is, if someone already began to study in Nigerian university as an undergraduate, and luckily being given a scholarship to study abroad, in that situation, what can the person do? Or can the abroad university that offered me scholarship accept my result for my Nigerian university to continue where I stopped? Or do I have to start afresh? So this is the question. So this person probably already got an admission, is studying in Nigerian university, then got a scholarship abroad. And the person is probably in a dilemma deciding, should I go for the one abroad? And can the one abroad already accept? Maybe the person is already in 300 level, they didn't mention, and doesn't want to lose the whole 3 years. And the person is asking, can this be carried over to the scholarship abroad? Who can attend to this in 1 minute, please?
The person should pack his or her bag and go to the one abroad. What was the person waiting for? I thought, even if the person is starting from first year again on the lighter notes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lucky, for answering that. I think that is the last question we can take for today. So any other questions that we have?
I mean, just to add to what Lucky said very quickly, right? Have you already asked the school if it's not possible to, it may not be possible, right? But have you already asked them if it's possible for them to consider some of the courses you've taken could give you some sort of grading already in terms of where you are going? If there's some sort of correlation, try asking them that. But honestly, if losing 2 years or 1 year, or how many years you already spent in Nigeria, my brother or sister, trust me, is worth it. Please pack your bags.
I think this is the shortest response we already had in this whole call today. So I want to say a very big thank you to all my panelists. And before we go, I usually do one thing, which is a ritual for me. Your last words, really last words, like last sentences. What would you have to tell someone out there who is either contemplating or in the process of thinking about applying for to study abroad, or for a postgraduate, or to get a scholarship? What would be your word, one word, or one short sentence to our people who are listening to us right now? Dr. Gunn, I'll start with you.
Just do it. It will change the history of your family.
Thank you. Mr. Lucky.
Yeah, the same thing. Just start applying. Yeah, but you'll need some guide. So just like Dr. Gunnar is mentoring some people, if you have someone in the US that is already doing that program or something, you just need some guide, whether in Europe, whether in Germany or in the US. If you have a guide, good. But if you don't have, just be asking questions. Get the department's email address and stuff, the program coordinator. Just ask questions, and just start applying.
And if you're stuck, you've seen their faces here, reach out to them on LinkedIn. Timsy, I'm coming to you.
Okay, so for those who are Christians, or in general, my advice comes from the Bible, Habakkuk 2:2, right? Write your vision, make it plain. Anything you write down, be hungry, write it down, and break it down into pieces and go for it. The sky is just a starting point. And please, Google is your best friend. I didn't know anybody when I started applying, but trust me, there is answers on the internet. That Google you use to watch everything else, use it to find answers. You can get it.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Timsy. I was going to say my own last word was Google it.
Google it,
Don't
exactly.
believe anybody who tells you, no, you have to know someone who knows someone to get this. It's not true. Google it. Everything is online. And if you're not sure, as Lucky already mentioned, you will see every school's email address. You will see it there. Write them. They always respond to you with the correct information. Even for your visa application, you don't need anyone to do that for you. Write the embassy directly and ask your questions. They will give you all the information you need. And with this, we'll come to the end of this session. I am in Germany, so I'm trying to be German to keep to the time. So I want to say a very big thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for sharing everything we've shared today. I mean, the praises and the thanks are all flowing into the chat, and everybody is super grateful for this, what we've shared today. And I want to say for everyone who have listened to us today, start doing it. Stop talking it, get to work. And with this, thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely evening.
Yeah.